and Ilana and Rodan have been captured, and they're in the dungeons at Galbrieth. And when they were captured, and the General Tarlach, faced them, he was shocked when he saw Shalev, but we never found out why. And they've been put in jail. They're supposed to be executed on the Emperor's birthday, and Shalev has now decided that he was going to plead for their lives. Shalev was made to stand outside General Tarlach's office until the meeting inside adjourned. A number of voices seeped out, but Shalev could not hear anything. Sometime later, the door opened and several officers exited, each glaring at him. One intentionally knocked into him, and Shalev nearly lost his temper. He would have feared to come with 100 pieces of me if I had. It seemed a long time passed before he was called in, perhaps a pointed statement on how unimportant his time was. Shalev watched Bortan clear papers from the strategy table. He turned and gave Shalev a tight smile.
My apologies, Master Shalev. I won't be a moment.
Tarlach, who had been standing at the table looking over maps or plans, Shalev could not be sure which, returned to his desk and sat down. He eyed Shalev, but never made any move to begin the conversation, and the silence extended. When Bortan finished and made to leave, the general stopped him.
I think, Mr. Bortand, that a witness to a meeting like this might be protocol.
Indeed, General Tarlach. I would recommend a third person, given the intricacy of the situation.
Shalev contemplated the rotund administrator. I would threaten to kill you if a word of what's said here ever got out, but given my situation, that's not much of a threat.
The general laughed, the bureaucrat gulped, and the prisoner glared. When Bortan had regained his composure, he said, I would be expected to reveal whatever I heard in court or to the Emperor. Otherwise, I would, out of professional decorum, keep what is said here in the strictest confidentiality.
Bortan was just an aide, Shalev reminded himself, and addressed the general. I plan to get personal. General Tarlach shrugged and signaled for Shalev to continue. I'd come to bargain for the lives of my friends, the elves and the two Teutons. They're young, foolish, and I think they've learnt their lessons. Given that they pose no threat to the Emperor, I ask that they be set free.
What have you to offer in exchange for this gesture of goodwill? A single execution makes much less of a statement than all 5 of you would.
Shalev swallowed.
I'll make a public confession, either here or in the capital. I'll admit to whatever crimes you would like to stick on me.
You might still be executed after that.
The general said.
I hope I will. It's preferable to rotting in a prison cell.
So what difference does it make?
Tarlach leaned forward.
If we execute you here or there, now or in the future?
You'll get the confession. Nothing is as popular as a dead martyr, and you can prevent that. Those in the resistance will enjoy playing up my execution. Also, the Emperor will be able to put to death all those rumors that abound.
Tarlach looked up, and a flicker of doubt crossed his face.
I know not of what you speak.
About the murder of Prince Shindel and his wife, my father and mother. You remember them surely. Do you recall your own fears and doubts? How about those of your wife? About how I had to flee to protect not just my own life, but also yours, and those of your wife and son. Shall I go on?
You have no proof.
Tarlach snapped, beginning to rise from his chair.
You were just a boy.
Bortan cleared his throat quietly to remind the general where he was and who he was with. Tarlach glanced at him, stood, straightened his uniform and crossed the room. His heels clicked on the stone floor. He opened a cupboard, took out a bottle, and poured himself something strong and pungent, before returning to his seat, where he sipped his drink.
Shalev continued.
I was there the night you told your wife of the pregnant empress. I was hiding under the pagoda in the garden when you discussed who murdered my parents.
Shalev saw the general's knuckles whiten as he gripped the desktop. His glass was frozen halfway between his mouth and the desk. He glared at Shalev, but said nothing.
Tell me, General Tarlach.
Shalev snarled.
And honestly, if that's even possible. If they had come for me in the night, and I cried out to you for help, would you have come to the aid of a 10-year-old orphan living under your roof, under your protection? Back then, before the Emperor corrupted you with rank and power, would you have tried to save me, the son of your best friend?
The general was breathing heavily. his nostrils flaring. Bertrand was quick to intervene. Allow me, with a lifetime of diplomacy, to suggest that calling the impeccable general corrupt might not be the most strategic way to make friends. Shalev rolled his eyes and turned his attention back to Tarlok. The general held a scroll with a royal seal on it. He read,
Furthermore, all caught aiding the criminal, Shalev, shall be put to death, without trial, appeal, or negotiations whatsoever, on the day of my birthday. Let the people understand that hanging is the sole consequence to treason.
Tarlok stared icily at Shalev.
You may go now. Guards!
Shalev was furious and clenched his fists.
So now your hands are tied, Tarlok? What about then? What would you have done to protect the innocent boy under your protection, under your roof? It was me, Shalev. Were you such a coward then as you are now? You never looked for me after I ran away, did you?
His voice was shaking as two burly guards entered the office, grabbed his arms, and began to drag him away. He shouted,
Were you so scared then as you are now? You know who murdered my parents. I heard you admit it to your wife at the pagoda.
Take him away.
Tarlok hissed between his clenched teeth.
He's gone mad.
Shalev struggled against the iron grip of the guards and kicked out. The chair spun into the air before crashing to the floor. Shalev twisted and screamed.
What would you have done if they'd tried to murder the 10-year-old boy like they murdered his mother and father? His father, your best friend, who rode with soldiers under your command, Tarlok, under your protection.
Get him out of here.
Tarlok roared, springing to his feet and throwing the glass across the room, where it shattered against the stone wall. Bertrand rose slowly from his chair, but didn't move any further. A scuffle broke out outside the office, and then more dragging. Shalev's hoarse shouts echoed from around the corner.
The boy was under your protection, Tarlok, in your house. Would you have tried to save me? I was Shay Shindel.
And then, from further away, almost muffled,
Why won't you answer me, you coward? My father was your best friend.
General Tarlok signaled for his advisor to leave, his chest heaving with rage. Bertrand closed the door softly and walked away, shaking his head. So now, some random questions.